Welcome to Psychic Development and Channeling class number 17. I'm Liah Howard, and today we are going to be learning how to do readings, psychic readings via phone, Skype, radio, and television. Thank you all so much for being here. So here's an individual doing a session on Skype. First, we're going to cover the homework, just go over a little bit of that. We'll review the homework. We'll answer some questions. We'll learn about our topic for discussion today. I will do a guided meditation, and then we'll have a homework assignment. It's really important that you take the time to do the homework assignments and that you follow through with the reading, with the exercises, with the YouTubes, and practicing. That's the way you're going to get to be the very best psychic that you can be. So we have a picture of a woman meditating. Meditation is perhaps one of the most important things that you can do to get centered, to be able to receive very good, clear, accurate information. So that's a daily. So in each of the prior webinars, there is a guided meditation. You can just go to that slide. They're all queued up. You can review all those meditations and you can use them. Again, I'd like you to keep journaling. This is keeping track of the insights that you're getting. This is questions you may have, answers that you receive from your guides, and also to practice doing readings. This is really the most important thing, is to practice with your friends, practice with your friends of friends, husbands, wives, whoever you can, until you get to the point where you're really comfortable to actually take your business out into the world, to develop a psychic business, which is what we're going to be talking about in these last 5 classes. This is the advanced segment. So you may already have your own psychic business and you just want to be able to take it out to the world in a different way, which we will be talking about today. And you were supposed to research 2 places where you could do public readings, whether it was a bookstore, a retreat center, or something of that nature. So I'm hoping that you did that, and also watching that YouTube video. So here's a couple of questions that were sent in. Again, I can't put all the questions up, but I'd like to put a couple up for you. It says, I'm trying to write up a contract for doing readings at the local bookstore. Well, good for you. That's great. Do you have an example of a contract that I could use? Well, I don't actually have an example of a contract that you could use. However, many bookstores that have psychics, some of them will have between 10 and 50 psychics that rotate in and out of the various rooms. They would have a contract, and that's what I would recommend, is that perhaps don't get the contract directly from them. If you want to have an idea of what it might look like, you could go to a different bookstore. You could look online for contracts for psychics. It is a good idea to know what questions to ask. We did talk about that a little bit last week, and to make sure that you agree with everything. That's everything having to do with the percentage, the amount of time, the place, things of that nature. So you can definitely look that up online, and you can get it from a bookstore. They usually have them, and a lot of them have applications that you would also fill out, sort of with you put a resume, and you would of course do a few readings, usually for the owner and a couple of the other employees, so that they get a sense of what your readings are like. So keep going. Congratulations. That's good. You're moving in that direction. How would you suggest I increase my popularity at the psychic fairs? Well, that's an interesting question. Increase my popularity at the psychic fairs. Of course, the psychics who've been at that particular fair year after year have built up a return clientele. People might wait once a year just to go and see their favorite psychic. So word of mouth is always the very, very best advertising. One of the best ways that you can get word of mouth at a psychic fair is by offering your readings, a mini reading if you want, to the other psychics there. Everybody has blind spots in their life, and even the very, very best psychic would probably welcome a very quality reading from someone like yourself who's ready to really go out there and offer your services. And it gives them a sense of, if they're too full, they can refer to you. They get a feel of what your work is like, what your readings are like, because they're all a little bit different depending on which mode, if you're clairvoyant or clairsentient or clairaudient, or if you use any of the psychic tools that we talked about, the tarot or the runes or something like that. So that is one of the best ways that you can build your own popularity, is to get to know the other psychics, and they can, when they have overflow, refer them to you. Again, you also want to remember that in your own hometown, you want to get to be known there through word of mouth. So do the best you can. Every single reading is very special. Make each and every one count. Be prepared emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Here's a quote. I always like to share a quote every week. The only way of finding the limits of the possible is going beyond them into the impossible. And that's Arthur Clarke. And these people are water rafting. I've never done that, but it looks a little scary. But I'm sure that they're learning about their limits and about going beyond them. And that's what we do in the psychic realm. It takes a very courageous person to put themselves out there in the world as a psychic. And today we're going to be talking about how can you present yourself as a quality, confident, capable psychic through radio, through television, through Skype and phone. And you can do it It's really important that you maintain that very, very strong inner connection. How do you know you're ready to do psychic readings via electronic broadcasting? And there's a little angel up there in the corner, and I think, honestly, I think our angels sort of prompt us to move ahead, to reach more people, and certainly we can reach a certain number of clients in our hometown. They can come to our office. We can see them in person at psychic fairs or bookstores. But there's a tremendous amount of people that are wanting to have psychic readings that are farther than 30 miles away. And one of the best ways to reach them is through the phone or through Skype. So in terms of knowing that you're ready to move to this next step, you're already receiving clear guidance from your higher self that this is your next step, that you're ready to go to a larger audience. And you can stay centered in chaotic surroundings. So when you're doing a phone session or a Skype session, you don't have that person's actual physical body there with the energy field that you feel. So you have to tune in on a much deeper level to who that being is. Some people think it's easier because you don't have a visual to distract you if you're doing a Skype call rather than Skype video. And you have to really be ready to be seen as a psychic. So you'd be ready to put yourself out there and be a psychic and receive those calls from clients. Again, you have a desire to reach a larger population, and this can happen very, very quickly when you build a website and you put your information out there and you start doing phone readings, and you do one for somebody in Kentucky, and then they tell their friend in Tennessee, and they tell their friend in Florida, and suddenly you're doing readings all over, and it's just through word of mouth. So again, word of mouth is really the best advertising that you could ever get. And sometimes it's nice to offer a client, if they refer you to somebody, even a little bit of a discount and say thank you. Thank you for referring me, and I appreciate your business. In your next reading, you get $25 off, something like that. Before you start doing phone sessions and Skype sessions, you must have successfully given many, many helpful, insightful, and accurate readings over time. These are in-person sessions with the person. You've gotten the feedback, and you're feeling very, very confident. Then you're ready to go to the next level. And you have to be able to do readings for these modalities with a headset on, and it looks somewhat like this. So you would have the headset, you would have the microphone, and you can't get distracted by it. Particularly with radio, you have a headset, and often with the Skype, you don't have to have a headset with Skype, but it can be helpful. Same with phone readings. You don't have to, but it can be helpful, just the quality of the sound. When you're doing a phone reading and the only thing you have to go on is the sound of that person's voice, it's really important that it's clear and precise and loud enough. And the other thing is that if you're going to be doing television and Skype readings, that you really want to be able to be at that point where you can open your eyes. If you're doing a 1-hour television show and your eyes are shut the whole time, that's not very entertaining or engaging for the listening audience, for the viewing audience. And same thing with Skype. If you're doing a Skype session, consider it similar to them being there in person with you and connecting with them. And the eyes are the windows to the soul. So you want to be able to keep your eyes open. I know a lot of people, when they first start out, they do start with their eyes shut, and that's certainly how I started. And there was a progression, and there will probably be a progression for you as well. So phone readings, they can be done on a landline, a cell phone, or internet, or Skype, or Google calls. My absolute favorite is on a landline to landline. Those seem to be the very best connection in terms of sound quality. So I do have a landline in my office that I use. I have done readings on cell phone. I don't really prefer to do it that way, but they can be done. And then there's Skype call and Google calls. People who are very, very long distance, if they're in Japan, if they're in France, if they're in other parts of the world, and it would be a very high phone bill. The Skype call works really, really well. I'm not talking about the video. You can do that as well, but even just the Skype call works really, really well. And Skype has a wonderful way of recording that session as well. So there's pros and cons of phone sessions. One of the positive is you have no visual distraction. Sometimes, when you see somebody, you get a hit of what they're like just because they look like somebody that you know. So if you don't have that visual to look at, then you're really just going on the quality and the sound of their voice. You don't have to dress up. I especially love that. I can wear, if I want to wear my jeans or shorts, I can do that for the session and be very, very comfortable. I actually, when I'm doing phone sessions, I love to sit cross-legged on the floor on a pillow. That's just how I prefer to do them. But when I'm doing an in-person session in my office, I get dressed up. I sit in the chair. I look very professional. But I don't have to do that for phone sessions. And I can do the session at home if I wish. I actually do my phone sessions for my office, but you might want to start, if you're a beginning psychic starting out, instead of renting an office, you could actually, if you have a quiet bedroom, you could do the phone session right in your bedroom. So you don't even have to rent office space. So that keeps your costs down. Now let's look at some of the cons to doing phone sessions. So you see these two people shaking hands and a little line underneath. That's, you don't have that personal contact. You just don't have it. You cannot see their face. You can't see the look of satisfaction on their face when you're finished with the reading. You can't give them a hug if they wish to give you a hug at the end of the session. You can't energetically connect with them in that way. So in terms of building client relationship, I have found over the years it's a little harder to remember a client when I'm just getting their name and their voice and I don't have the actual visual of who they are, because I do so many readings, and if I can see their face, it's stored in a different part of my brain and I remember that. So being that I'm on Maui, the good thing is a lot of people come here and then go back to many different parts of the world. So then they might get their initial session here and then do phone reading follow-ups, which is nice, so then I know what they look like. So again, it might be harder to remember the client without a visual cue if you happen to be a very visually oriented person. And with the phone, you really have to remember a couple of things. One of them is to disable the call waiting. If you don't disable the call waiting, it's very disruptive when you're doing your session. It interrupts the flow. So that's another aspect to consider. Here are the key factors for successful phone sessions. This seems like it would almost go without saying, but I have to say it. Honestly, I have to say there must be quiet on both ends of the line. I have had people call me before I learned to say this, calling me from a truck stop, calling me from Starbucks, calling me from like noisy places where there's roommates or children or pets all around. And because I'm only working on their voice, it's extra important that I'm hearing their voice, that it feels like they're right there in front of me. And if there's a lot of extraneous noise, it takes much longer for me to go into trance, and it takes much longer for me to focus on their specific vibration. So now when I book a phone session, I always say to the person, I would like for you to be in a quiet place where you won't be disturbed for 1 full hour. If you can, I prefer if you can be on a landline. If they can't, then we can do cell phone and we can do Skype. That's fine, but that is my preference. So before beginning the reading itself, when you're doing a phone session, take a few minutes to just talk with your client. Hello, how are you? Thank you for booking this session. Usually I collect payment well in advance, but there are a few instances where I haven't. I like to get the money end of it taken care of separately so I don't have to deal with that when I'm doing the reading. But if you have not collected payment, like if you're doing Square on your phone or whatever, you can do it right then, but get that out of the way first and then really tune into your client. I always check the recording levels first, and then once they're online, I check to make sure that it's recording at good levels so that they will get a good recording of their session. I find that when my guides come in, there's just so much information, and a lot of it's really specific, and I want them to be able to refer back and get that information. And I always do tell them as well to keep a notepad and a pen just in case anything should happen to the recording, but to have that all taken care of in terms of the logistics. How to connect with your client. To do a phone session, you must tune into the vibration of the person through their voice. So what I do is I actually ask them to say their first name, and I don't do the whole birth name or the whole full name, married name, maiden name. I just honestly have them say their first name, and I have them say it 3 times. And the reason for that is what I'm doing is I'm calling on their energy field out of all the other beings in the universe. I'm calling on their specific vibration that's associated with that name. There's a feeling that comes specifically with that name. So that's how I do it. A lot of psychics do it differently. They might ask for the birth date. They might ask, they might just silently tune in. But that's a little tool that I've developed that helps me. So they might say Jennifer, Jennifer, Jennifer. And while Jennifer is saying her name, I am tuning in. I'm listening to the seeing if I get any pictures associated with Jennifer. I'm also feeling any emotions connected with Jennifer. Jennifer might sound perky and happy on the phone, and then when I tune into the deeper emotional being of Jennifer, I feel an ocean of sadness. So that's what I'm checking for, is what's happening emotionally. Are there any visual pictures that I'm getting? Are my guides downloading? It's almost like slides getting downloaded that they want me to see what's going on with this person. And am I hearing any specific messages? So it's really using my whole body, which we talked about, using your body as a tool. But with phone sessions, it's even more important. I do this one thing with the phone where I imagine that I'm creating a rainbow bridge of love from my heart to their heart before the session, so that it feels as though instead of the person being 3,000 miles away or 6,000 miles, or however many miles away they are, it feels like they're sitting right in front of me. Because time and space are an illusion, and our higher selves can go past that and connect heart to heart. So remember, you never want to start a session unless you're in a place of unconditional love. Couples readings over the phone. These are fun. I love to do couples readings. And couples readings over the phone can be a little challenging just because you have 2 people and yourself, and you don't want them talking over each other. That really doesn't work. So I always remind them to not talk over each other. And then I always request that they don't have dead time, because sometimes one will be waiting for the other one to answer the question, or one will be waiting for the other one to ask a question. And they only have 1 hour. The way I do it is I have each of them write 4 questions. So she would write 4, he would write 4, and then together they would compose 4 questions. So that's 12 questions. I usually cover about 12 questions in a 1-hour session. And that part of the process is them learning to give and take in the reading as well. So that's how I do couple sessions. It can work when they are on a separate phone. They can have a landline and be on a separate phone. That's one of the best ways for that couples readings to work. Or Skype. You could do Skype call. If you have Skype Premium, you can have more than one person on the Skype. Okay, so that's going to complete our section on phone readings. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it during the meditation, but let's move on to Skype sessions. We're so lucky to live in this day and age with this technology. I just love Skype. I love that I can connect with my family across the miles and my friends, and now I can do readings. I teach classes via Skype. I do sessions via Skype. It's pretty incredible. So the thing about Skype is you have to have, again, it needs to be quiet, and you have to know, one of the cons is that you may get disconnected. Skype is not the strongest connection in the world. I've had Skype sessions where I've gotten disconnected 2 or 3 times. I've also had Skype sessions where they were totally smooth. They worked really, really well, and there was no disconnection. If you don't have a strong Wi-Fi connection where you're doing the Skype session and you're just working from the satellite and it's not really strong, you can get what's called a Wi-Fi extender. A Wi-Fi extender is a wonderful thing. It's very inexpensive. It's like $50, I think. You can get that, and it connects with your computer and it extends the Wi-Fi like on the other side of the house if you want to do a Skype session, or if you want to do FaceTime, which we'll talk about as well, a Wi-Fi extender. So the great thing about Skype is you can have visual contact. And it's really great to get to look at your client and say hello and greet them and remember what they look like. And you can record directly on Skype. You do have to add a special component called a Skype call recorder, which I'll show you a little later on, in order to have that feature activated. And you can do Skype also on your phone if you like. I like to do it on the computer, but if you get really stuck, you can do a Skype session on your phone. And you don't have to have the Wi-Fi turned on for that. You can be at a park and do a Skype session. So again, and with the cons, sometimes there might be squeaking or like feedback noises. Oh, I just want to mention one other thing with the Skype. You might want to put yourself on in your sign-in as invisible so you don't get bothered by other people while you're doing the Skype session. I always sign in as invisible, and that way I can connect with the person and I don't have a bunch of other clients and students trying to send messages at the same time. You can do a reading for more than one person at a time on Skype. However, one person on the call must have Skype Premium. I mean, I recommend that you get Skype Premium. It's only $10 a month, and then you can do multiple people. Here's a couple. You could do a group class of 6. You could do numerous people on the Skype Premium, and you would do it in a similar fashion. Again, tuning in, creating a rainbow bridge of love from your heart to the heart of the person or the couple that you are working with. The tricky thing about doing readings, now I'm in Maui, which is Hawaii time, and I've done readings all around the world. We always have to check out what the time difference is and make sure that we accommodate for that, because once you do Skype sessions, you then open yourself to global readings, and you have to really take into account so that it can work for each of you. For example, when I do France or Europe, it's 12 hours difference, so I have to make sure that I'm paying attention to that. FaceTime sessions on a smartphone. So I have a smartphone right here, you can see, and you have to actually, there's a setting that you have to adjust in your iPhone to do a FaceTime setting, and it turns the FaceTime on. You have to have that on in order to do a FaceTime session, and you do it just like this picture shows, from one iPhone to another iPhone, and it can be a very good connection, but you do definitely have to have Wi-Fi. So this might be where you want to get one of those Wi-Fi extenders in your home if there's a part of your home that doesn't have a good connection. It is a better connection than Skype, and the smartphone does have a do not disturb feature that you can click on in the settings so that you don't get disrupted while you're doing the session. And you don't need to have a separate account to do it. Like Skype, you actually have to set up a Skype account. But for FaceTime, you can just go into your smartphone and FaceTime if somebody else has another smartphone and you've both got those turned on. So in terms of the cons of doing FaceTime, if the phone receives calls or text messages that indicated during the session unless disabled, you want to make sure you disable that because that can be very disruptive. And both people have to have smartphones with FaceTime feature turned on under settings. And the call cannot actually be recorded internally while you're FaceTiming. It's very difficult to also do the voice record at the same time. So that would be a consideration in terms of how you're recording that session for a client. Here are 5 different methods of recording your session, and you're going to have to figure out what works best for you. I actually do mostly the digital CD recorder number 2, which is the Marantz machine on the right, and that machine records the session. It takes 2 minutes after the session to make a CD of the session, and it's a really great machine. Right now, that Marantz CD recorder is about, I think, about $375, right in that range. So not bad, pretty reasonable. This is the Skype call recorder that you can see, the MP3. That is the one I would recommend that you download onto your computer, the MP3 Skype recorder, because if it's in an MP3 format, then you can send it to your client very easily. You don't want a WAV file, you want an MP3. The one on the right called Call Mina, that's a mobile phone recording device where you can actually record from your phone. The one under the Skype recorder that's what I plug in to my landline, and then I plug it into this Marantz machine that you see on the right. So they work together to do a phone recorded session. And then on the bottom, that is an Olympus digital recorder. I have found that Olympus is probably a really, it just seems like a very good brand, and this also does the MP3, so you can connect it to your computer. And I'm later on going to tell you specifically which brands that I would recommend. Then there's this other way called instantconference.com. Now for $10 a month, that's what their rate is right now, you can do up to 20 sessions. So if you're a beginning psychic, you're probably going to do less than 20 sessions a month, and you can record them on this website, and then you can send the person the link and they can get the MP3. So it's very, very easy, and there's training that goes along with it so that you can do it. So recording your session, I do recommend recording your psychic readings because usually so much information comes in and the person can't even grasp it all at that time. They get some of it, but they don't get all of it. So in this way, they can go back and they can refer to it and they can make important decisions in their lives. I think it also adds a little bit of a professionalism as well. Now, to send your recording, I know some of you are very highly technical and some of you are not, so I'm just going to go through a little bit of this. To send your recorded session, you may need to use a file transfer medium. There are a few different ones that I have tried. One is called Dropbox, one is called WeTransfer, and one is called SoundCloud. All three of these are free that you can download into your computer, and they're very simple to use. You want to get the MP3 from your digital recorder, put it into your computer, and then go to, let's say you go to WeTransfer. This is actually a picture of a WeTransfer file. You can send videos, you can send audios, and you put the person's email in. You put your email, you click on what file that you want, you put their email, and you click send, and it goes to them. Then they receive an email, they open it up, and then they can download that file. Now there is a time limit on how long they can download it. It will expire, and you need to make sure your client knows that that file will expire. But it's great. It's easy. It might seem a little complicated, but it's really not once you actually use it. And you can always keep in mind, you can always go to YouTube if you have any questions about any one of these. Go to YouTube and just type in how to use WeTransfer, how to use Dropbox, and it's right there, and it makes it super simple. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about radio because I really feel radio is the best medium for psychics. It's a way that you can connect with a very large population, and you can get your message out in a very, they hear your voice, they tune into your voice, and it's a lot easier than television in terms of connecting. So why do radio? You can inspire others. I had a radio show. It was called Mind, Body, Spirit Inspirational Talk Radio. I did it for 5.5 years here on Maui. I have hundreds of shows archived on my website, which you can check out. They're all free. You can listen to them. Incredible guest speakers, very famous people. And each of those shows was about offering a gift to the community. I did it locally here on Maui, but they're all archived, so you can listen to them. The other purpose of that radio show was to educate, that we want to share our knowledge with the mass population and let people know about psychics and bring it out of the closet and into the mass media, that we're not abnormal. We are normal, and all of us are meant to be psychic. And we can serve. It's a way to also serve humanity by doing readings on the air. People who maybe couldn't afford to come in for a session, they can call. Let's say you have a caller show where people can call in. Maybe you talk for the first half hour and then callers call in for half hour. And you just, do a bunch of readings. You might do one every few minutes on the phone. And that way you can help to serve your community, and you could, of course, do it on the internet and serve a much larger population as well. And promotion. There are so many ways you can promote yourself on radio. Everything from actually doing hosting a show, to being a guest on a show, to having advertisements on a show, to get the word out about what you do. So the radio, you can see this girl, doesn't she look excited? I think it's important to smile when you're on radio, even though they can't see you, because they can feel your smile. The listeners can actually feel you smiling. So it's an excellent medium for uplifting large numbers of people simultaneously, and doing phone readings and on-air transmissions of psychic channel messages. They shift the frequency of the mass media. They actually change the consciousness. They shift the consciousness. So you can check in your area and see if there's an inspirational talk show. There might be one. A lot of times they put them on early in the morning, I think. And you can see if there is one, if you could be a guest on it, or maybe you want to start your own show. The education aspect is you can, I'm doing an educational show now. It's called The Mystical and the Mundane. It's a great radio show. It's an internet show. And each week I pick a different topic. I'm doing it with a friend named Robert, who's also a psychic. And we pick a different topic, and then we chat about it, and we share what we have learned, and to help educate others. So you could do that as well. You could, even if you're not doing actual readings on the air, they hear about your knowledge, they hear about your background, and they get comfortable and familiar with you so that they feel comfortable in calling you for a session. Metaphysical topics are great to do on radio. Talk radio is especially positive for teaching listeners about psychic perception and other realms. So I love talk radio. I've been on so many talk radio shows, and it's really good to be on lots and lots of different talk radio shows as a guest, because you learn about how to be a host. You learn what works and what didn't work, and what host really had, you know, where they engaged you and it flowed, and others where maybe it didn't, or you would have wished it had gone differently. So I would recommend being on as many shows as you can. And again, service radio shows can promote metaphysical and events happening in the community. So if you know of some events that are happening, if there's a healing session, if there's a Reiki clinic, if there's a sound, session that you want to promote, you can do that on your radio show. And that helps to create a network with the other psychics and the other healers in your area. And I think it's important not just to have an global network, but to network with the people that you live with your own community, with the people in your own town, your own city. But again, the internet is a great way to connect all around the world globally, and it's so much fun. I would love for you to check out this website right here, www.intentioncall.com. That radio show has many different hosts. I'm one of them, and they're all archived. But every Saturday, well, let's see, it's 12 noon Hawaii time, so you would have to check what time it is in your time. Every Saturday, there's a call, and you can just join the call for free and be there, and they do a guided meditation and an upliftment, and it's about putting out positive intention in the world. And it's growing more and more and more. So I want to encourage you on Saturdays to go to www.intentioncall.com and click on the live broadcast. Find out what time it would be in your area. So promotion. Radio is such a great way to promote who you are, because people, they become familiar with your voice. I remember I did radio here in Maui, I guess about 5.5 years, and I would run into people on the street, and when they found out my name was Liah Howard, they would say, "Oh, I listened to your radio show." And the funny thing is, they would always say, "I always thought you were much taller." So I guess I have a tall radio voice. I'm only 5'1" in person, but so it's just fun to connect. And that was one of the ways that moving to a new area, this was many, many years ago that I moved to Maui, that I was able to get the community here familiar with who I am and what I have to offer. I did do radio on the mainland in the Monterey Bay area on a couple of different shows regularly before I moved here. But that was just a fun way to get to be known in this community. And what I did was I would make advertisements, just like they have advertisements for music events that are happening or advertisements for building products or services, I would have ads for my psychic services so that people would hear my voice and get the number and go to the website. So ads are really a powerful way to pack a punch for who you are and what you have to offer. Don't be afraid to sell what you have to offer. You know, we're in an industry, we're as psychics, I think that's probably one of the hardest things is how do I promote myself in the world? And if you consider that what you're doing is that you're actually helping people by letting them know what you have available so you can assist them in their lives. So for radio, there's 3 different ways. There's being a guest on an established radio show, and there are many, many established radio shows, both in the community, on the airwaves, AM and FM, and through the internet. Or you can create your very own radio show and be the host. And I've done that with 2 different shows now, and it's so much fun to be your own boss and to be able to choose the content. And it's really, you would love doing it. It's great fun. And you can advertise your services on either or both of these venues. So it's just a wonderful way to get the word out. So if you can check in your area and see what shows are already established, and sometimes there's, let's say like community radio, or maybe there's a college station and they don't have any shows that are really metaphysical, but they might be open to establishing a metaphysical show. So you can always check. But let's say you have a really well-established metaphysical show. People come from all around the world and you hear different guest speakers. There was one in San Francisco. It started off, I think, as a 1-hour show, and then it went to 2 hours, and then 3 hours. I think eventually it ended up for 4 hours in the morning with all different guests, and it was incredible. And there was a way that it networked all these light workers and brought together their gifts and their strengths and their services out into the world. So you want to create a summary of who you are and what you offer, and then send it to as many stations as you can. So you can actually research the radio stations that are around, and if you're going to be traveling, you can do this a few months in advance. This is not a last-minute kind of thing. Usually radio books up pretty much months in advance. I was pretty booked up with my guests, you know, at least a month, 2 months usually. So you want to make sure that you're planning ahead. If you want to do radio and you're going to be traveling, contact that show ahead of time. Follow up with a phone call. The personal touch of following up is always really, really good. And I think it's important to actually connect with the specific host that you think would be most psychic friendly on that station. So you may have a radio station that covers everything from news to weather, sports, to local events, to music, to, you know, all kinds of things. And you would just be one tiny component of a much larger station. So you want to find out which one of those hosts might be the most likely to have you as a guest, rather than wasting your time and just sending an email to the secretary who's going to open up 100 billion emails. Who is the guest that you would be most likely to be on their show? Find out their email if you can and send your information. I think it's good to include a picture. Even though on radio they don't see you, there's something about the way that you present yourself in a picture. Have a professional photo done and present your material in as professional a manner as you can, because they get lots and lots and lots of people sending lots of information, and they have to sift through who's going to be the best guest to have. So, and if you have any audio clips on your website that they can click on and hear, if you have other radio shows that they can click on and hear, and actually that would be a demonstration of how you do radio, that's very, very helpful to include as well. Here's the little banner for the radio show that I'm doing now, The Mystical and the Mundane, and it was just fun coming up with that name. I had the idea of doing a radio show where we could take these great metaphysical topics and bring them down into very concrete, day-to-day kinds of things. So we have topics, everything from pilgrimage to healing, meditation, sacred sounds, many, many, many topics. So you can choose your own radio show and be the host on it. So I would like to suggest to you that you actually take the time to listen to some other people's shows. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You can get a sense of what's out there, and you can decide where there's a gap that you could fill. So if you're going to a radio station and they already have, a show that's doing psychic call-ins, but they don't have an educational show about psychics, that might be a better venue for you. If they have an educational show and they don't actually have somebody doing psychic call-ins on the air, that'd be a great opening for you. Radio stations are often willing to add new programs if you can show them an actual outline. With the shows that I did, I actually developed a whole outline of what I wanted, what the purpose and the goal was, and the audience target that I wanted to reach, and presented that to them and went and talked to them about doing the show. And I was willing to make a commitment. I think it's important you have to think about what time commitment you would like to make. Usually the minimum is 3 months. That would be the very, very minimum, but generally it's a year commitment to a radio station. Unless you're just if you're just going to be a guest, you can be a guest however often you want. If you're a really good guest, that host will start calling you back and saying, hey, can you be a guest on my show again? Keep in mind, though, that there can be great cost included with being a guest on radio, and sometimes people are surprised to hear this. They think, oh, I can just do radio all over and it's free. It is not free. We're going to talk about right now all the different types of radio and what the expenses that's involved and what might be the best fit for you. So we have internet radio, we have local radio station, we have syndicated, community radio, and public broadcasting. Let's look at these in depth. The two types of radio promotion, again, the local and the global. The benefits of the local is you create that personal connection with the people that you live and work with and that your kids go to school with, and you're part of that community. You become a viable, uplifting force in the community, and you can encourage local change just through your radio show. If you know of events that are happening, you can have speakers on about those events, or you can even share your opinion because it's your show. In terms of global promotion, you reach more listeners, but it is a little impersonal because there's not the opportunity to have, if they like you, they can't really call and get an in-person session. The good news is they could get a Skype session, which is really, really nice. And the other thing about the global radios, if you think about it, it can go into parts of the world where they don't even have, people teaching psychic development classes or doing psychic readings might be really shunned upon. It might be against their religion. It might be against their beliefs. And you can be the light in a world of perhaps darkness for them, their inspiration and their hope. So there are two different basic types of radio broadcasts. There's live and there's pre-recorded, and I've done both. I've done many, many shows of both, and I'd have to say live is the most fun, honestly, where you have people calling in and you get to interact with them. You never really know who's going to call in, and it's kind of exciting. And the pre-recorded, those have benefits too, because with the pre-recorded, you can, of course, edit if you need to. If there's a dog starts barking, or especially, I guess the pre-recorded are good if you can pre-arrange your callers. You can say, I'm doing a 1-hour show and it's going to be on building psychic community, and I'm going to have 5 people call in, and you can set up the times that they call in and you know who they are, and there's a feeling of continuity with that. So on the left, you see I put, if it's possible to have a technician screen the calls, I do suggest. And in the larger radio studios, the way that it's set up is they have an inner room and an outer room that are connected. There is the technician room, and then there is the room that you actually sit with the microphone, the big microphone, and the headphones, and you do the actual production. And usually there's a glass in between, and they screen the calls. They may have 10 lines of people calling in. So let's say you open it up. Okay, it's time. Now it's the time of the show to do psychic readings. and the lights just start blinking and the phones start ringing. And you can just stay in that really deep and centered place of trance, of availability, of inner connection. You don't have to deal with the names or where they're from or what their question is, other than when it's their turn, the others are muted. When it's their turn, they come on, have them say their name 3 times if you like. Tune into them and be 100% present just for that reading. It's a little harder when you're working at a smaller radio station or you're doing it on the internet and you've sent out a big Facebook post saying that people can call in and you don't have somebody screening the calls. It's a little more challenging, but it can be done. You can do it. You can learn to do it, and you can do it well. It just takes a little bit more of a left brain, right brain acuity, and you can do it. So the thing about having a technician screen the calls is that eliminates any weirdos. You know, there are some people out there with free time who have sort of a bad attitude about psychics, and they might be kind of negative. Or there's people who are what I call psychic, well, they're kind of like psychic addicts. They call all the different psychics and they just psychically suck your, like vampires, psychic vampires. And they have a whole list of things that are wrong with them, and they don't really want an answer. They just want to sort of whine about what's going on. So those technicians can actually, a good technician, once you start working harmoniously with them, they will know which calls to weed out, which is great. Then you get the people who are really ready to ask their question. They have a clear question and they really want the help. Those are the kind of clients that you want to get when you're on the phone. Internet radio. I have learned so much about internet radio because I used to just go into the studio, do my radio show, and leave, and it would appear on the air. You know, it would be live, and then there would be a podcast, and I could listen to it, and it would be great. Now I have learned about internet radio, and it's a whole new world, and it's very in depth. But there is a way that you can get comfortable with doing it. The great thing about internet radio, you can do it in your own home. You don't have to have an office, as long as your home is quiet. That's really important, and you can do it. You do need to learn a few things. I've had to learn in terms of the editing, the mixing, and uploading the show. And usually it takes me a few hours of preparation to do 1 hour of radio. And that's because I don't want to have dead time on the air. When I'm doing a radio show, I want to be ready. So I usually will take notes and have information handy. I'll have resources and references. I'll have examples of what I want to talk about. Unless I'm doing actual readings on the air, which is really the easiest thing to do. If you want to have the least preparation for a radio show, just do psychic readings. And then you just have to take care of showing up, being centered, relaxed, open, and you can just do the readings. That's the easiest way to do radio. But some people get a little nervous about that, and they'd rather do educational content. So there are programs, there are ways that you can learn about doing internet radio. I've downloaded a program called Audacity, Audacity, because I have a PC, Windows 8. If you have a Mac, you can use GarageBand and do all kinds of fun things with radio shows. So it just depends which type of computer you have, and you'll need to learn. And a lot of the internet radio stations are willing to help to teach you how to do radio so that you can be on their show. Or you can just record it and they will do all the uploading, the mixing, the intro music, the fading in and out. But I think it's kind of fun to learn how to do that as well. Local radio. The benefit of doing local radio, again, is your listeners get to know you in person. They can call. You can offer a special. You can say, if you hear me on the air today and you want to get a reading, you get $25 off if you call today. Then when you're riding home from the radio station, your phone starts ringing. You can book a bunch of appointments and you can give them the discount. That's really fun. It's sort of like you get immediate feedback for your radio. You can also increase your visibility through local radio. A lot of radio stations do fairs and booths and events, and you can be a part of, included in that, of one of the staff members at the radio station. And it's a wonderful feeling to get to know the other DJs and the other shows and what they're offering, and the sense honestly, it feels to me, in the radio shows that I've done in the past, the one on Maui and the one in California, it feels like a family. Like you get to know the technicians, you get to know the other DJs, you get to be a part of a community. It's great, which you don't get with the internet so much, but you do get, well, you get it a little bit with the internet. We do staff meetings with the other DJs together once a month, so that's actually kind of cool. And you know what? Actually, you can become a celebrity in your own community just through repeated exposure of doing a radio show. You know, many, many times when people hear my name, they go, oh, you know, you're from Mind, Body, Spirit, that show that I used to do. And I haven't done that show in a number of years, but people still remember. So it gives you a little bit of notoriety, which is good for promoting your business. And it can also give you the opportunity to speak at some of their events. Syndicated radio, these types of shows reach a very, very large and loyal audience. For example, an internet example would be HeyHouseRadio.com. Hay House Radio has all kinds of healers and intuitives, psychics, authors, teachers, metaphysical magicians, all kinds of wonderful, wonderful guests. And they choose very, very quality guests to be on their show. So this is a great venue. Now there is, again, people don't realize that there's a cost. Some of these larger shows, there is a cost. I don't know what the cost is on Hay House, but I know this next one, it's an example of metaphysical AM radio. It's called Coast to Coast. And I had a friend who was a guest on that show, and I think she said it was about $1,000 for 1 hour. And she signed up, I think, for 4 times. So that's a really big expenditure of money, and you want to make sure if you're doing something like that, that's going to have a payoff. Otherwise, you don't really want to spend more than about 30% of your advertising budget, of your whole budget on advertising, okay? You do want to spend some on advertising, which is why we do radio, but not really more than 30%. So again, the cost of being a guest on a radio show can really go from $0 to $100 to $1,000 per hour, just so you know, and that's always good to find out ahead of time. Community radio. Community radio allows no advertising. Instead, they work on a contribution basis from listeners and the community. This is an excellent forum for educating and inspiring the listeners, but it doesn't really offer promotional opportunities due to the guidelines of the station. Colleges often have community radio stations, so we have a local radio station here, and they do lots of community announcements. They don't do any advertisement, though, so I couldn't get on there and say, I'm Liah Howard, and my website is www.liahhoward.com, and I'm doing these webinars, and I'm doing, you know, it's not really like that. It's more about offering my gift on the show. I might do readings on the air, and I might talk about the classes that I'm teaching, but I'm not actually doing a plug, like an advertising plug, and that's a little bit different. And usually those radio shows are free. And again, I would recommend finding a host that is sort of in alignment with what you want to teach or what you want to share, so that, you know, they have, the community radio is usually lots and lots of volunteers. And so if you find somebody who believes in what you do, maybe you want to offer them a psychic reading, and they get a sense of what you offer, what you do, and then they want to share that on their show. Usually each of the volunteers has their own show with their own sort of, like, one might play African drumming music, and one might be inspirational poetry, and one might be inspirational people. So that might be the show that you could go on. So just to find that out. Public broadcasting, the PBS, National Public Radio, this is probably the least useful format for getting your message about the metaphysical realm across to your listeners. They do not do advertisements, and you can't announce your website or phone number. The thing about the NPR is they're usually more kind of newsy radio stations, and less of the sort of, they're more left brain than right brain. So that's why I would say that probably out of all the different, probably the least friendly avenue for doing psychic readings. Now, be sure you ask some questions before you sign a contract, okay? Because you may be really, really excited about doing radio, but you don't really have a clear sense of how much work it's going to take. And I hate to say it, but it usually takes a little more work than what you realize to do radio, to really have a show that's going to be very enlightening and enlivening and uplifting and move at a really good pace. So you want to find out, get a sense of how large the listening audience is. Sometimes you can just go to the radio show's website. You want to see if you're going to get a copy of the broadcast. Are you going to get a CD? Are you going to get an MP3? And is that your property? Is it their property and you get to use it? Or is it actually your property that you can post up on your website and use for your own promotion? This is a very important point to find out about that. Will the show be archived on their site? And if so, for how long? And again, can you archive it on your site? Can you put it on YouTube if you want? What can you do? What are the rules and restrictions associated with this show? And, internet radio is still kind of young. It's sort of a baby in terms of having all these systems down. And I think a lot of the internet radio stations are still sort of figuring out some of these aspects. So make sure if the questions aren't in the contract before you sign that contract that you feel good about it. And if there's anything that you need to negotiate and talk with them about, do it before you sign the contract so that you're not in a situation that you're regretting in any way, shape, or form. To keep in mind, what is your budget? If you've signed a contract for a year and you're paying $200 a week for your radio time, is that logically in your budget? That's $800 a month. Or can you get sponsors, people who will advertise that will circumvent and shortcut that, diminish that cost that you have to put in because they get to put an ad. Can you get your own advertisers to sponsor your show? That's a great way to do it as well. The effectiveness of radio advertising, repeated exposure over time is the most effective means for the greatest return. I would recommend 30 to 60-second slots. I love the 60-second ads, but 30-second ads can work too. 3 to 4 times a week for at least 1 month, and this is going to remind the listener. So it's about repeated exposure. They hear it on Monday, they hear it on Thursday, they hear it on Tuesday, and have the ads air at different times during the day. So that way you're hitting a different audience, a different listening audience. Same thing with internet. You can do ads, you can record ads and on that internet station and play them at different times of the day and draw more people to your radio show, which will ultimately draw more people to set up sessions with you. Now, if you want to be a really good quality radio show guest, you got to prepare ahead of time. And I would say write your questions, email them to the host. If you can do it at least 24 hours in advance, that would be the minimum lead time. I'd do it a week in advance if you can. The questions that you would like that interviewer to actually ask you. In this way, you're preventing yourself being really put on the spot and having to cover an area that you're not comfortable with. And you have a sense of, oh, I kind of know what's coming. Some hosts will not let you do that and they want to just do the interview cold, and that's fine. In that circumstance, just really tune in, center yourself, and trust that all the right information is going to come forth for that particular audience that's listening that day. But practice with a friend. So if you're going to do radio and you're going to be presenting what you do a trial run. What's it called? A role play. Do it with a friend. Have them be the host. Give them the questions, and then you answer. And if you can videotape it and look at it, that's even better. Most of us have smartphones where you can videotape the session. That's a great thing to do. Get a sense of how your voice is, how you're presenting. You want to also practice with working with the mic, how close you get to the mic in terms of sound. But at the radio station, they'll teach you about that as well. And you want to definitely plug your information, like your name, your website, and your phone number. Those are really important. So to build a positive relationship and be a great guest, you want to arrive on time. I would say arrive early. That's even better than on time. If your show starts at 2, get there by 1:45 at the very, very latest, so that your radio host knows that you're there, that they're ready to go, that if they need to do a sound check beforehand, usually somebody else is in the studio ahead of time, but if the studio happens to be open, they can do a sound check. You can get comfortable. You can set the chair where you want. You can set the mic where you want. You can make sure if you need a jacket, if you're cold. I always bring a jacket to a radio station. It's usually kind of cold in there, and you'll be ready to go. You want to end on time. Radio is to the minute. It's actually to the second. Honestly, live radio is to the second, and they will keep you to it. You do not go over. If they have break schedule and they say you need to break every 13 minutes, you make sure you break every 13 minutes, no matter what. Even if you're doing a psychic reading and you're in the middle and you're deep inside, if you need to set a little silent timer, or if you need to have somebody in the room with you, you can often bring an assistant with you, and they can tap you, or they can, do sort of 1, 2, 3, let you know when it's time. But stick to the time schedule. This is with both radio and television. You want to work cooperatively, and again, you want to smile on air as much as possible. It will come through. The smile comes through. So for being a quality radio show host, you want to at least have been on 10 different shows. Have that sense of what it's like. Know what what it feels like for that host. You want to be prepared and know your topic. Again, start on time, finish on time, allow break time, and have written releases for any copyrighted music or material. You're responsible. If it's your show and you're using someone's music, you need to contact that musician ahead of time and say, can I get a written release to use your song? And it has to be the specific song and what it's for in the release, and get that all taken care of so that it will be legit that you can have that. Radio. The only thing that listener is going on is your voice. So if you're sleepy, do what you need to do to energize yourself before going on radio, because they want to hear your voice and they want to hear aliveness and energy, no monotone. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people, and some of those people that are really monotone, it's really hard because they're sort of putting the audience to sleep, and you want to keep the listeners active and alive and engaged. You want to use specific examples whenever you can. So if you're doing, you're talking about your psychic work, your psychic healing work, use an example. Well, let's see, Larry came to me, and Larry had a difficulty in his neck, and this is what happened, and really be willing to give specific examples, because that will give them the visual, because they're only going on auditory information. And again, encourage your audience to interact as much as possible. So if you have a talk show, what I did is I would have talk show the first half hour, and then I'd open it up to the callers the second half hour, and that was really, really fun. And I like to include guided meditations and relaxations. It's a little gift that you can offer your listeners. In the show, The Mystical and the Mundane, that I'm doing now with Robert, we take turns doing guided meditations for the audience so that they actually have something that they can take with them, and they can go back to that recording and they can listen to that meditation again and again and again. And again, offer listener specials, or a caller, like you can say, I'm going to offer $50 off a session, or $50 off a class, and if you're caller number 9, you will get that and have coupons. You can also have people offer services like a massage therapist, and you can say if the caller number 9 calls in, they get that massage coupon, and in that way you're getting your sponsors more visibility as well. And again, you want to repeat each time you come on and off the air. Say the name of the show, say who you are, and say what the topic is every single time when you go on the show, on air, off air, on air, off air. I know it seems repetitive, but because you might have different listeners at the second half of your show than you have in the first half of your show, if you only introduce yourself in the beginning, they're not going to know what show it is. So you want to make sure that it's repeated as often as possible. Okay, just a quick touch-in about the financial aspects of radio. The least expensive is creating your own podcast and putting it up on the internet and sending it out into the world. The next would be a guest on a local or community radio where you're not having to pay any money. The medium range is being a guest on a metaphysical internet radio show, or to host your own internet radio show. And this cost will go anywhere between 0 to 100. If it's a syndicated show and it's a commercial radio show, you're looking at anywhere between $100 to $1,000 per show just to be on that show. So you really have to decide what your advertising budget is, how much you want to invest. And you have to look at it in the long term. Remember, just as in print media, it takes 18 months for an ad to be on a bulletin board before people actually register it's there, or to be in a magazine, a print magazine, to register it's there. It's a similar thing with radio. It takes repeated time over time to get that response. So don't think, oh, I'm going to do this great radio show, I'm going to have 100 people call. Probably that's not going to happen. It probably is going to take you doing it a repeated number of times to get more calls. So here are some of the things that you need to know about in terms of cost of radio. And you want to have a high quality headphone and microphone. You have to have a fast computer. It has to have a high broadband width to do radio. I learned this the hard way. I did buy a new computer so that I could do the internet radio show and do it in a quality way. You need to install a call recorder program, and there are many different call recorder programs. And sometimes if you're doing internet radio, there is a monthly fee that you pay to that station, and you may need an editing program such as Audacity or GarageBand. So that's for the internet radio. And for local and community or commercial radio, usually there's a fee for the show and a fee for the ads. And then the rest is kind of included. Usually they do the editing, they do the mixing, they put the beginning music and ending music on. And a lot of times they will have a website that you can submit your information, and then you get your information up on the website. Actually, with this Intention Radio that I'm doing, they have a website as well, which is great. They can offer more information about me and what I am doing in the world. I'm going to jump into television. Television is probably the hardest area to do psychic readings. That's my experience. I haven't done it on any national networks or anything, but I have done community television a number of times. I've done individual readings on air, and I've done being a part of a panel with other psychics on air. And because you're dealing with an environment, you're dealing with a studio environment, you have to be extra connected inside so that you are not disturbed. So you really have to have had a lot of practice in doing readings, and you're comfortable with that. And you have to be ready. You have to remember that, this is really hard for me to read. Oh, you have to look at the camera when you're accused. So there'll be people in the studio, and there'll be one main person that's in charge, and then there'll be other people around. And you have to pay attention to who you're supposed to be looking at for cues. And if they say this camera, you suddenly have to shift to that camera. And if they say that camera, you have to shift to that camera, and you have to pay attention to this. So even though you're inside and you're really connected deep inside and you're doing these readings, the cameras are shifting, and there'll be times they want you to look directly at the camera, and there'll be times they want you to look at the host and not at the camera. And I found with television that, you know, it's really, you have to look, you have to get there early. They have to do your hair, your makeup, your clothing has to look really all color coordinated and very crisp and clean. So it's a lot more energy output in terms of doing psychic readings. I really admire the psychics that are doing that because I know how much energy it takes. And also they tend to take a little bit more ridicule from society because we don't have as many psychics doing television readings as we do doing radio readings. And remember, on TV, don't speak over the audience. So if they're clapping, you don't speak over them. If they're laughing, you don't speak over them. And you don't speak over other people. If you're on a panel with other psychics, don't talk at the same time. Really pay attention to the flow and to what's happening in that space. Being a guest on a television broadcast. So these are some of the things in the studio environment that you need to think about. That it's going to be very, very bright. And you may not be used to. You may like to start your psychic readings sort of in the quiet or the dark or in your own little office where everything is set up. And so you have to be aware that when you're doing television, the lights are very, very bright, and they are shining directly on you. They have to. That's how they can get the best image. So you have to be able to not be sensitive to the sound. Your inner connection needs to be so strong that you're not affected by that external stimulation. There's also sound, and there's all kinds of microphone checks, and they hide the microphones, and you have to be comfortable with speaking into a microphone that's somewhat hidden on your body. And You want to keep to the time frame. Again, with television, they're also to the minute. They have commercial breaks, and they're very clear about when those are. And if they say, you know, it's time for break, you darn sure better be ready to break. And the thing about TV is they do lots of retakes. So even though you're filming a 1-hour show, it could take many, many hours. Just plan to spend the day. Just plan to spend the day, because you probably will be there. Bring a sack lunch, bring plenty of water to drink, and just camp out there for the day, because they have to get it perfect. And they're going to be editing it, and they're going to be making sure that there's no sounds, that the lighting, that all of it is flowing together. So when you see a finished product, when you look at, say, like a John Edward crossing over show, or James Van Praagh, or some of these other psychics that are on TV, that's taken hours and hours and hours of recording in order to get that 1-hour segment of good video, of good TV. So so keep that in mind in terms of it's going to take many retakes. It's usually cool in this television studio as well. So a jacket is a nice thing to wear. Remember, with TV, it's not like radio. Radio, you can cheat and you can look at your notes, which I think is great, but you cannot do that on TV. You have to know your material. You have to be very comfortable. So again, you want to practice with somebody, a friend or an associate or an assistant, who can help you so that you present very confidently, very comfortably, and very relaxed on the television camera. How do you stay centered and grounded while doing TV readings or interviews? Well, I think it's helpful to have a friend actually out there in the audience, in the room, who can hold the energy, who actually, remember in the group readings that we talked about last week, I said if you're doing 100 people, you have 3 people in the audience holding that energetic space for you. Let yourself have that with this television and radio too, if you need it. Have somebody in the studio with you. I like to bring a little spritz of rose, because here I have a little spritz. Rose makes me think of roses and makes me think of love, and it has a beautiful vibration. The flower essence, the true rose flower essence, and don't get the artificial one, go for the real deal, because it will help relax you and it'll help bring you into a loving space, and it can change a very sterile environment into a friendly environment. Always remember to pray and prepare yourself before going into the studio, before going on air. I always take a few minutes to go in the bathroom. When I get to the studio, you know, I've parked wherever I am. If you're in a city and you have to park and you have to, you know, get yourself there, give yourself a few extra minutes, go in the restroom, center and ground, fill yourself with light. Look in the mirror, check if there's anything you need to change. If you feel good, smile at yourself in the mirror. Tell yourself you can do it. Say, I love you, and you're going to do a great job. Kind of give yourself a little pep talk in the bathroom before you go and greet the person who's going to be bringing you, you know, to all the different steps before you actually get on air. And be ready, and then relax. You know, once you're there, just relax and let go. Ask your spirit guides and helpers to assist you, to be there with you while you're doing the show. They're very happy to assist with this. So it's really about relaxing, because more information is going to come through you. And as Doreen Virtue says, if you're nervous, focus on service. I love that line. If you're nervous, focus on service. Don't worry about the camera. Don't worry about the people. Focus on being an open vehicle and an open vessel for this beautiful wisdom, light, and love to come through. Present yourself professionally, especially on television, where it's, you know, going to be going out. Even if it's just community TV, it's going out in your community. Give yourself a professional appearance. It's sort of like the difference between giving psychics sort of that old-fashioned gypsy with the crystal ball and all the dangly blah blah. It's sort of, you know, if you want to wear a jacket and look a little more professional, and or even business casual, either formal business or business casual attire. We talked about that last time. But take pride in how you look and go professionally. These women have professional attire on. And keep the conversation flowing. Remember, with radio and TV, no dead air time. It's okay in meditations off air, but when you're doing a meditation on air, you want to have it flowing. You might want to even have music on in the background to fill in if there's a little bit of spaciousness. Adhere to the breaks in scheduling. Arrive early. Let them help you with your makeup and hair, the sound and light. But really, don't be a prima donna. Believe me, they deal with a lot of different people. If you want to get invited back to that television station or that radio station, you're just another guest. And you want to be the most humble, harmonious, helpful guest that you can be. So you want to be ready. You want to bring your own water so you can drink. You want to be centered and grounded and open and loving. And it's really not all about you. It's about you being a spokesperson for these higher realms and bringing that information through. If you're doing call-in readings, I know this is hard if you're beginning, and you're probably not going to be doing television if you're a beginning psychic, but for those of you who have been doing readings for quite some time, really work at getting comfortable with doing eyes open reading, even if it's looking in a camera. And you can practice again at home with friends. It's just on camera. It's better than having the eyes shut. You can have your eyes shut some, but not a lot. We are going to do a guided meditation now. I'm not going to do music today. I decided we're just going to do a guided meditation. So I want to invite you to sit comfortably wherever you are and uncross your legs and sit nice and straight. So if you're leaning, just allow yourself to sit up very, very straight. And again, remember that you can pretend that there's a little string and it's tied to the top of your head. It's pulling your spine up nice and straight. So each vertebrae is stacked one on top of the other. And in this way, we open our heart. We open our spine so our Kundalini energy can run up and down our spine. We get in touch with our life force energy. And there's a way that when we sit up very, very straight, it empowers us. Just by sitting up in an empowered way and putting our shoulders back and lift from the rib cage. Lift yourself up from the rib cage so that your lungs are very open. And now I want you to just pay attention to the sounds that are in the room around you, wherever you are. And instead of tuning them out, I want you to just really listen to what they are. For example, I have a fan going in my room and I can hear the wind outside. I can hear my breath. What do you hear in your room? Become very, very highly tuned into this present moment. Okay, now I want you to shift your attention from the room and what you hear outside to your body. And I want you to bring all of your awareness and attention right to the very base of your spine. And almost as though you have eyeballs that are there and you can look inside your body. I want you to look from that place at the base of your spine through your body and see if there's anywhere that there's any tightness or any what might feel like an energetic block of any kind. And just bring your awareness right to that point. And wherever you feel any tightening or any discomfort, imagine that you can shine a light, and it's the light of your soul, and it's very, very bright, and it's like a laser. And that laser beam of light can just blow up any blockages and bring in your life force into your body. So just tell that part of your body that for now you're going to be doing a meditation, and it can just relax, that it can let go. And relax your spine, starting at the very base of your spine and going up through all the chakras, the first at the base, the second chakra right below the navel, the third chakra in the tummy area, the fourth is your heart, relaxing your spine and your body, the fifth chakra, relaxing your throat and your neck, the sixth chakra, relaxing your third eye, and all the way into the Agya chakra, inside. And the seventh chakra, relaxing the crown of your head, the top of your head. And of course we have all the upper chakras, just opening and relaxing those chakras. And now just tune into your physical aura around your body. That's that energy field. We talked about it in one of our earlier classes, the aura. And just fill your aura with light, bright, bright, white light. So bright. Just be the brightest beam of light that you can be, and feel as though you're sitting in an egg of light, bright white light, so that nothing but light can come to you and nothing but light can be here. In this moment, allow your muscles and your bones and your tissues to be filled with this light. Allow your consciousness and your emotions to be filled with this light, this bright, bright light. You are a being of light. And then on the in-breath, breathe in a wonderful feeling of peace and relaxation. Whatever for you feels the most peaceful, whether it's looking at a sunset or seeing a bird sitting in a nest softly, or water flowing. Whatever is the real deep representation of peacefulness for you, just allow yourself to feel that right now, to see it. Maybe you like to pat your cat, and when you pat your kitty cat, you feel so relaxed. Maybe you hug your child, and when you hug your child, you feel really, really relaxed. Just allow your body to relax. Your body knows how to relax. Your body remembers that inside there's peace, a beautiful peacefulness. And now I'd like you to visualize from your hip area, right in that hip area, a grounding cord, a very strong grounding cord. And it can look like a root, it can look like a shaft of light, it can look like a cable, whatever you want it to be. But that grounding cord goes down to the very, very, very center of Mother Earth. I like to visualize at the center of the earth a beautiful, huge crystal. And that grounding cord, for me, it feels like a root going down and attaching to the center of Mother Earth. And it's just grounding my energy in my body. Like a root that keeps me solid. No matter what's going on around me, I'm solid and centered inside. I am solid and centered inside. I am rooted and grounded. I am rooted and grounded, and you are rooted and grounded. And let yourself feel that energy of the earth coming up to that shaft, that grounding cord, and filling you with a peaceful, sweet, strong energy of protection, of a feeling of safety, of a feeling of strength. And from this rooted and grounded place, bring your attention and your awareness right to your center chakra, right in your belly area. And from that place, I want you to send a light, a shaft of light up, 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 and connect with infinite love up above. I like to imagine it sort of as a treasure chest of light and love. And I send that shaft of light from my belly all the way up, connecting with infinite love. And as I connect, I feel this sense of I'm not alone. I don't have to do anything alone. There's all these other dimensions and levels of being that I'm connected to. And when I send my light up into all these other dimensions of love and light, I connect with infinite love. The love of my soul, the love of my higher self, the love of the universe. So bring that love. Let yourself receive that love down through that shaft and bring it into your body, right into your belly area. And feel that infinite love filling you. It's filling any places where you might feel a little less than, a little unworthy, a little frightened, a little nervous, a little scared. It's just filling all those places. Just like when you pour water into a vessel, it fills the vessel. That love is just filling any little gaps you may have that may have come from childhood or experiences that you've had. It's just filling all those little gaps with love. And now picture yourself in a beautiful purple bubble. And this is your spiritual shield so that you are protected. Call on the angels and the archangels to be here with you now. Call on your divine higher self. Call on your ascended master teachers. Call on your guides. to be here. Now I want you to imagine that you're doing a phone session with somebody who's 2,000 miles away. And the phone session is going to begin in just a minute. And you're very, very centered. And you're very, very grounded. And it feels so good to be this centered and this grounded and this connected. You could even say your prayer, beloved Mother, Father God, Infinite Spirit, we come to you in love. We ask to be filled, surrounded, and protected by the light of the Holy Spirit. We ask to lift beyond earth into areas of absolute truth. We ask that that which is most needed by this soul, that's the one you're going to be doing the reading for, be brought forth in this time. And we ask to be clear channels for God's love, light, truth, healing, and blessing. We stand believing. Thank you, Mother, Father God, Infinite Spirit. So you've said your prayer of protection, you've done your banishing work, you're all clear and centered and open. And from this place, feel that beautiful place of service, how you humbly offer yourself to the divine, to be a vehicle and a vessel, just like the telephone serves you, that your human body is like your telephone to the divine, to give a message to this being. And envision that the phone rings and you pick it up and you say hello and you greet your client and you're smiling because you're so happy that you get to serve them and do a psychic reading for them. You're so delighted to connect. And you might do the sound check and you might collect the money if you need to, but then it comes time you're really ready to do the session. At that point, that's where I want you to visualize a rainbow coming right from your heart and going directly into their heart. And this rainbow bridge connects the two of you so that it feels like your client that's many miles away is sitting right there in front of you. Invite their energy to come right there in front of you, not in your aura, but in front of your aura, so you can feel who they are and what they're all about. And it will feel just as if they're sitting there with you in an actual reading in the room. And when you feel their presence at that point in time, you can ask them to say their name and to ask their question, or maybe you have a general message that you want to give to them first. Remember to turn your recording device on and do your session. And then at the end of the session, I want you to give thanks. Always end your sessions, even if it's a phone session, with thank you. I like to do that namaste. The highest in me acknowledges and bows to the highest in you. Thank your client. Thank your guides. Thank your angels. And then disconnect from them so that you can come back and do whatever you need to do, make your CD or make your MP3 recording, do sort of the logistics of doing the session. So to disconnect, you can put your thumbs together like this and squeeze your hands. Or you can put your fingertips together like this. Or you can put your arms together like this and send your energy around and through your system. Or you can imagine a beautiful flower in front of your heart and then just explode it when it feels full. Or you can imagine cutting a cord between you and your client, giving them back their energy and being present. So that feeling that we just experienced with that phone session, that's the same thing that we're going to do when we're doing Skype. That's the same thing that we're going to do when we're doing radio and television readings. So when you're on the radio station, let's just pretend that you're sitting in the radio studio, and I want you to imagine, even if you haven't actually been in the radio studio, imagine what it feels like, imagine what it looks like with all the controls, and you're in the room and it's a quiet room, and you have your headphones on that kind of look sort of like this. You have your headphones on, and the technician says, caller on the line, and it's time to go. What I want you to do is do that same thing where you send that rainbow bridge of love to that client, to that caller, and feel their energy, and everything else goes into the background. They become foreground, and everything else goes into the background. And you connect with that individual. You connect with their higher self, with their guides, with their soul, with their infinite self. And they work together in union with you and your guides and your counsel and your infinite higher self to give them the information that they need. And then you thank them and then you go on. I usually on radio just do one question for each person, and then I go on to the next caller, and you do the same thing, and you can do caller after caller after caller until a commercial break, usually only 15 minutes, so that's not very long in terms of psychic readings. And then during the break, you can stay centered and in meditation, or you can disconnect and reconnect when you come back, whatever you prefer. So that's how you do those sessions. And on television, it's the same thing. You have to maintain that internal connection, even though you're looking and you're listening. It's as though different compartments of your brain are working at the same time. And just like you can pat your head and rub your tummy, can you do that? You can do the same thing when you're channeling and doing TV, or channeling and doing radio. You can do the same thing. You can do it. It does take practice. So let yourself practice. Know that you're going to keep getting better and better and better. Most important thing is to relax. The most important thing is to know that you're a natural, that you are designed to be able to be just like the telephone, to receive that information and allow it to come through. Okay, so I want you to now bring all of your awareness and your attention back into this time and this place. And I would like you to open your eyes and see this slide with the beautiful, beautiful rainbow that's streaming out. And know that I'm right now sending a rainbow bridge of love from my heart to your heart in gratitude that you are here and that you are going to be bringing your light as an amazing light worker out into the world and sharing that with others. So I did look up a couple of different websites that have information about doing readings on television that you could actually see. One is Sylvia Brown and John Edward. They're both pretty well-known psychics, and they've done a lot of television. And they make it look easy, but they have, I'm sure it wasn't always easy for them either. There's a learning curve. It gets easier and easier. Anything that you want to learn, it gets easier and easier the more you do it. And here are some YouTube videos. This TV psychic Sally Morgan and Michelle White Dove, she was actually voted #1 psychic in America this year. So I think that those are helpful to watch too. And the one with Michelle White Dove also has an excerpt from Lilydale, which is a community of all mediums. And you could, you go to YouTube and you can just get all kinds of information. It's a wonderful resource for you. So I do recommend that you check out these two YouTube videos and sites. And here's your homework. Here's a little radio tower. That's a little country podunk radio station. For those of you who are in the city, we do have radio stations like that here and there. Review prior classes, information, and the meditations. Continue journaling. Practice 2 phone sessions. So you might do that with a friend. Or a friend's friend, or just to practice doing phone sessions and feeling what it's like when you can't actually see the person. And then research 2 radio stations where you could be a guest, where you could either do, a 5-minute presentation, a 30-minute. Some radio shows, they divide up the guest. You have 15 minutes or half hour or an hour. And some shows you just have a minute to introduce yourself. And to watch the YouTube videos. Okay, so that completes our class for today. In summary, we did review the homework for last week. We did answer some questions. Thank you for sending your questions in. I appreciate that. It's nice to know you're thinking about the material during the week. We did do a guided meditation. And we did learn about doing psychic readings over the phone, via Skype, radio, TV, and of course, FaceTime. And next week is going to be really packed. I want you to have paper and pen next week. We have so much information, unbelievable, about developing a business and marketing plan to bring your psychic and healing work out into the world. And then the class after that, we're actually going to be doing network marketing, class number 19, and then we will end up this series with class number 20, which is about being an ethical psychic, and that will complete our 20 class series. So I'm really excited that you are in this advanced level of these classes, and thank you so much for being here today, for joining me, and for sharing your light in the world. And namaste.